How do you find your free time, Lisa?
I make it. I turn off all the things and pick up a book and read it. And then I'm like, do I feel guilty because I'm not doing the load of laundry or I'm not doing whatever staring at me and around in the house? But you have to make it so. I don't have to be productive in my free time.
This is
You know?
true. You don't have to be productive in your free
Right.
time. I like that one. If you can find a way to comfortably celebrate that you don't have to be productive, I think you just earned your free time, or you just found your free time, or you just enjoyed your free time.
Yeah. That's what we're going with.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wins in the Grind. I am your host, Esco. I am joined by the lovely and talented Lisa Tilt. Lisa, thank you for joining me. Hey, today we're going to talk about remote work and work-life balance.
Isn't
So,
that an interesting combination of words when things not said? Here's the game. Things not said when we started our careers.
I'm trying to figure out why we put these things together. They're both very challenging. To be honest with you, COVID did some of us a favor and it did some of us a disservice, but the remote work thing has been quite a teeter totter. And I would say since COVID, we're tottering back to where we were before COVID. So that's kind of in the news here recently. And then the juggle of work life balance, I think to some extent, and this is just me talking about me, I kind of enjoyed, I shouldn't say that. I realized that I needed the decompression time, whether I'm driving home from the airport, whether I'm driving home from the office, that decompression time is super important. So, gosh, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why we put these together. So, Lisa, your thoughts real quick, remote work and work-life balance.
Yeah, I think it turned the table on what both of those things mean in the time that we were talking about. Certainly the progression in our 20, 30-year careers, but also again, post-pandemic, what that means. So a remote work scenario is completely different in what it means today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think of this, because the next thing I kind of want to dig into is how is our generation, how are the Gen Xers, kind of jumping into this? Did it throw us for a loop? And I go back to when I was early in my career and going out in the field for the first time with Mike Fouché, my mentor. And, him taking advantage of the time we had together, A, to prep for a customer, B, during the customer, and then during the customer meeting and giving me feedback, and then C, the dinner or the drinks afterward, and it was kind of a full circle moment. We don't have that in remote work. I mean, I don't find myself on an airplane. So, I mean, how have Gen Xers managed this remote work thing?
It really kind of depends on the job that you have and what the requirements are. Yes, definitely less interaction has changed things. And you started the conversation by, kind of the teeter totter back to away from remote work. And, the statistic I read was 85% of CEOs want or expect almost full-time remote or at least sometime in the office coming back into, certainly 2025 and what that looks like. But um, I think the concept of how we do work, I mean, it was so foreign to me to work from home more than like the fraction of a day after a dentist appointment, right? Which you're like, ooh, I'm going to work 2 hours from home. I mean, for years, right? That's how
Right.
we were. And then to say, I'd sit around my office, I can't believe I'm in my basement office, or I can't believe I'm doing these things. And then, like anything, you get used to it. Everybody else is doing it and this is what we're doing now, but you didn't know when to come out of it and then or what would come out of it. But there was no human face-to-face interaction, and then there slowly was, and we're not, certainly X number of years later, 4 years later, not back to that full. Some of us are not jumping on planes, we're in the office, we're getting to see clients. And I have to tell you, every time we go to a client site, it's like, I'm so glad we met in person from both sides. You
Oh, yeah.
just, oh my gosh, it's so three-dimensional, for the love of goodness.
On that note, I remember the first time I went. So I started my career obviously on the phone in earlier in my sales career, and the first time I got to meet a customer face to face that I had been talking with, I had a relationship with them over the phone for quite some time. I met them face to face for the first time, and that relationship just skyrocketed. I mean, we were just better, and all we did was have one meeting and one drink kind of thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't monumental. So, I mean, the fact that we're now going back to in-person meetings, that kind of thing, is very interesting. But by the same token, for that example that I just gave, I turn my camera on. I want people to
Mm,
see my reaction, and I don't know that my peers in my demographic feel the same way. I mean, okay, I'm asking. This is kind of an odd question to ask you. How do you feel about your camera on? I know how
yeah.
you feel. You kind of coached me on it during COVID. But I mean, how do you feel our demographic feels about the camera being on or off?
I think so much of it is related to the company culture.
Mm,
Because it will literally be sort of company lines. Like everybody's on camera, everybody's off camera. I've seen that. I mean, it almost something I can bet on. So a lot of that is actually culture, and that is regardless of our age, or the age of the people participating. So I don't know what's driving that as much as anything. I do know that people who have worked in their field of study for as long as we have do have, I kind of see the opposite, but also that might be that I'm in marketing and it's so much of a face-to-face thing, although you're in sales, so I don't know. Most of the people that we talk with are on camera. Eh, So I don't know. And it feels strange if it's not. And again,
yes.
it's one dimension. You're essentially having a conference call, right? Remember those days?
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to get on a conference call. We're all going to sit around and stare at a speakerphone in the middle of a table, and talk to other people. So again, very one dimensional, even more so than a video conference. So I just kind of think it depends on what your role is, what you want to accomplish, what kind of relationship you want to build. Really all those things kind of play into it. And I think honestly, that's regardless of
Yeah.
generation, maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, no, it is culture, and I'm gonna tease, but I'm so looking forward to our next session where we get to talk a lot more about culture. That's a tease
Yeah.
for the next series of videos. Uh, but one thing I do want to call out, because remote work slash work life balance for me got a little bit better and worse. And so here's what I mean by that. I am now able to run down the street, pick up my kid from school, and be back on a phone call, camera on, in my office, in 30 minutes. I mean, round trip. That's pretty cool. I couldn't do that from the office. I for sure couldn't do that from the airplane. So, I get a little bit of my home life back in this remote work type world. What are some of the things that you have seen, either good or bad, Lisa?
I do think it's forced Gen Xers and boomers ahead of us to do some connecting of personal and professional life. I mean, they're literally all the memes and the things that started when we were all invited into everybody's living rooms at the height of the pandemic, right? It made it okay for your kid. And I say that because my dog Tucker just walked into the office and yours is back there. Like that made it okay. Could you imagine? You're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. My
Oh yeah.
kid just ran in. And so as we know, I mean, we're not saying anything that hasn't been said a lot, but to the topic that we're talking about, it's really allowed that combination and people to realize that they're two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
and that they don't have to be so rigidly divided, which it really was. I mean, when I started, I, I mean, you wouldn't even talk about, you know, what you were experiencing, certainly not what you were feeling.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you'd have some water cooler chit chat about your weekend, but that didn't go past like 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, things like
Right.
that.
Right.
So that absolutely has opened up so many ways to connect with people and people
Yeah.
that you work with, which I have loved 100%.
And I think
Because you work in your house full time. And
Yes.
we are hybrid, so we're 3 days in the office, fully flex, depending on what
Hey,
days
but
you
your
want.
office is a house. I mean,
It is, and it's fabulous, but
so I
yeah,
think
by
I think
design.
I think that's the win, Lisa, is in, obviously we're talking about the wins and the grind, but the win for me is the fact if I'm purposeful, and we'll get into this in a second, but if I'm purposeful, I can actually insert bits of my personal life into my workday to give me that bit of serenity to get through everything I've got to get through. And sometimes you're a little frantic. I mean, sometimes I'm running to get on a meeting
Mhm.
in front of the camera, but by the same token, I think it gives me the opportunity to spend a little bit more time with my kids. What about you? What the win of remote work?
Oh, that I can absolutely have more flexibility to be there for my family
Mhm.
in ways that I thought were actually rigid lines between personal and professional. Previously, they were.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that we wanted to kind of cover in this
Yeah.
topic is the fact that lines are blurred. And I've actually gotten a little bit more comfortable with inviting my customers who I'm just meeting for the first time in most cases into my home. Yeah, that's Max and he does that all day long or he talks to the Amazon delivery driver very loudly. I'm inviting people in. We're talking about, stuff where that is a little bit more personal. So I'm able to build rapport faster because those lines are blurred. And believe it or not, for this introvert, blurring those lines to build rapport as fast as I possibly can has actually been a win for me. So goodness for me. Lisa, I have a note here that I'm supposed to ask you about big rocks and what does that mean? Help
Yeah.
me with that. Is it a work-life balance thing or is it a remote work thing or is it a both thing?
It's a both thing. It's a whole life thing in my view. So
Okay.
I think I was in my 20s and went to some seminar as people do. And somebody used this example. Maybe it was actually time management. Eh, That makes sense. In my 20s, sure, I'll go with that. Um, and the speaker pulled out a glass bowl.
Mhm.
And then she was sort of talking about, this is the ecosystem of your day, right? Here's the time with the air in this bowl is your time. And then, she put some of these big rocks that she had in there and kind of filled it up and said, so now is the jar full? And you kind of think, yeah, it's full. And then she sprinkled in some pebbles, and the pebbles sort of trickled down and filled in the holes of the day, right? The proverbial day. And then she said, well, now is it full? We're like, yes, because, we're following along as we should. And then she poured sand in it, and there were more things that could fill in the cracks. And then she said, well, for sure it's full. Guess what? She poured water in it. And that, like, now there's literally nothing that you can have. And then she said, and she paused for a second and she said, now try and reverse that, the order of
Ooh,
putting those things in, right?
wow.
So think
Yeah.
about that. So you reverse it, you put water in, you fill it up. There's no more room for any of the other things to go in without it overflowing. And then the things you had in there are now out of your day, right? So there's only one way to most productively fill up your day, like in terms of that exercise, right? And I have over the years thought about that, and I've even sort of incorporated it in some of my talks for different reasons. But for this conversation, my big rocks scenario is those big rocks that you figure out, and that could be a day, a year, whatever, are the things that I want to make sure that those big rocks are balanced and represent things, all the things that are important for me. So I have a family rock and I have a parent, rock. I've got a work one. I've got a personal me time one. And I need to make sure that all those things fit. And whether it's in a day, in a week, and then I fill it in with some of the smaller, less important things and the smaller, less important things. But I've really sort of used that as a visualization to prioritize the things to make sure those are the things I plan for, I schedule for, I prioritize. Does that make sense? Or am I like
No,
crazy?
that actually makes perfect sense. And that's what I want to double click into in this particular session. I think scheduling
Yeah.
this stuff, being purposeful. And now here's the grind part of that. Oh, I've got to schedule reading email. I've got to schedule, my exercise. I've got to schedule lunch. Me, I actually schedule bio breaks in
Yeah.
between meetings. So, I mean, the double click here and the grind in this particular case is that you got to be purposeful and schedule that stuff so that way you can satisfy those big rocks to the nth degree that you want to. So,
Yeah. And do
yes,
you
it
know,
makes
let me
sense.
interrupt you. Do you know what you taught me on that? It's not that you're necessarily scheduling bio breaks. You're starting meetings at 10 minutes past. You're starting meeting at 15 minutes past. I think we all get so, oh, it has to be a 30-minute meeting. Oh, it has to be an hour meeting. Almost everything, if it's an hour meeting, guess what? It could be a 50-minute meeting or a
Yep.
45-minute meeting.
Yep.
Most likely. And sometimes, guess what? If it goes over because nobody's scheduling in that 15 minutes, yeah, I have learned that. You started that because I'm like, what is this bat silly, crazy thing? 10 minutes, right? I got it. And you've got your alerts and you got the things. So, to your point, actively managing your calendar for all the things we're in a redone house, a historic home that we've turned into an office, and we have a park across the street, and we have a wonderful place. As one of my employees says, I go down to the cemetery and I scream. If I just need to let it out, I know where to go where people don't think I'm crazy. Other people go sit on the swings that are across the street. But about half my team even schedules going for a walk, right? And I
Yes.
just love that.
Yes.
It's
That,
so important.
that
Bring
is that
shoes to
is
the office, whatever that means.
that is definitely a win. So I think Lisa, we beat this one up, remote work and work-life balance. Now I can see why we combine them because they kind of need to be working together. In some of our other sessions, I encourage everyone to take a look at it. We're going to tackle what does it look like to be halfway through our careers. One of the other ones that we're going to be talking about is being the sandwich generation. We're going to double click into that. And then, of course, the next one coming up is advice for managing up and down. That's going to be a really unique one. So with that, make sure you do take a look at some of our other video series, and we'll catch everyone next time. Bye, everybody.